So I was at a conference last week where the weather was equally beautiful today, and they kept the curtains closed the entire time, and everybody was depressed about how they'd kind of shut the curtains the whole time. But I definitely understand it now as people peel off as kind of the afternoon goes by on this beautiful day. So what we're going to do is have one of the fastest debriefs you've ever seen in this, because we have a great panel coming that I want to make sure that we have time for here. But let me just a few starting framing comments. And I think Michelle's introduction at the beginning of the growth and the momentum of money focused on the what works movement really is a tribute to the folks in this room. And one of the observations would be, and these breakout groups speak to this, is that right now it depends hugely on the leadership of folks in this room, often fighting against the tide rather than the tide running with them, and things really being easy in terms of kind of money flowing to what works in an easy way. And so in many ways, when we think about the innovations and these leverage points of cities, of the work with the Pay for Success kind of arena, and the work that various of you have been doing, kind of, if you will, on the farm teams of building evidence at earlier stages of organizations, those are in many ways certain points of leverage of trying to get the momentum running in the same direction all of you are running to make this something that is much more widespread and much more easy to have happen. So what I'm going to do is call on one person from each group to take 2 to 3 minutes. And so a couple of people said, like, that's going to be interesting to see who does that for various groups. And so I'm going to have you just talk for 2 or 3 minutes. What is the headline highlight? If there was a call for action, most important issue that the What Works movement should be focused on coming out of your group, what would it be? And then we'll literally take 2 or 3 minutes of very rapid fire reactions, other ideas that we're going to capture. Now, there's no way we're going to hear from everybody. So 2 things. As you're sitting here, if there are ideas you have coming out of those meetings or just from the panel earlier, if you will literally write them down on a piece of paper and hand them in after, it would be hugely helpful to RFA as they shape the agenda. And those of you that have gone paperless and have no paper with you, write Shivam Shah at americaachieves.org. Because the agenda that you see here today has been shaped by the prior meeting, and that will be true going forward. So please do provide input here. So let me start with Ben Hecht on cities. And could you just give us a quick summary headlines from your group?
Yeah, but Kelly said that I could have her time too. So.
Oh, we're going to come to you next, Kelly.
So I wrote my notes on the back of an index card here, so I can't talk for more than 2 minutes. So we were about cities, and what I took away from it was, not that I have a bias about cities given my name of my organization, but that there actually is, like Michelle warned, there is a lot of activity that is happening in cities, and a lot of it really is driven by the leader, as you said, Jeff, which is from the mayor on down. And so there was talk about program and how it's been embedded, but there was also a lot of talk about program's not going to be enough, that it matters about how the management structure, especially as to can it survive changes in mayors. So the idea of programs and management and the importance of the 2 of them. The second one was that there was a lot of talk about, and we talked about philanthropy's role in that, but there was a lot of talk about the challenge of people working in government basically drinking from the fire hose, not having a lot of time to evaluate, and that one of the things that would be really helpful is if there was better, easy to access benchmarks that could be adopted, or ideas of what really does work. And then the last one was that there was a really interesting conversation, at least to me, about how when you are doing this evidence-based work, results focus, and you are saying that things don't work, that when you marry cutting with making some money available to innovate, you basically help those folks who are going through that to be able to make the transition.
That's great. Thank you for kind of the brief summary. We're going to go to all 3 and then open it up. Kelly. And this was the farm teams for the What Works movement from the nonprofit sector.
Yes, this was how to build a farm team for the What Works movement to help government play Moneyball. And I think the conclusion that we arrived at is the best way to build the farm team was actually to help government itself play Moneyball better. and where were there opportunities for learning, technical assistance, getting better at the ability to use data, set performance metrics, and shift some past patterns that have been less than productive and may contribute to some of the concerns, barriers, and a history that can stand to be shifted and harness the opportunity that appears to be in our hands now to do so. Concretely, that might include radically revisiting how we structure terms for these arrangements and driving those into pay for success, performance partnerships, grant making, innovation funds. And these terms would make clear definitions, expectations of evidence levels, expectations of what goes into evaluations, how they're handled, what they include to combine learning, improvement, innovation, not just be the on-off switch, and would include terms that fundamentally put the power a little bit more into the leadership of organizations to drive the agenda, to deliver the outcomes for families and kids. In support of that, technology-enabled platforms to link data sets in order to help those who make resource allocation decisions understand the field better, to help practitioners inform their own improvement work, and decrease costs associated to performance management and link data management to evaluation. We have a set of other things, and I'll be following up with Shabam with those afterwards, but I think I got it. I don't know if there's anybody else on the team that wants to add to it.
Great, and we'll open it back up. As people are listening also to these, it's great that these are quite specific things. I mean, one of the things that I know Michelle and Shivam will be following up with people on is, who is interested in a given topic so that work will continue coming out of it. So if there's something that catches your eye, you can follow up with the folks that are speaking, but also with Michelle and Shivam. So Tracy on the Pay for Success group.
Well, Jeff Liebman asked me to report out, and I'm really going to seize this opportunity to be Jeff Liebman for 3 minutes, which is really exciting for me. So we had a really robust discussion on how Pay for Success is working. It's still a very nascent innovation, but there was a lot of productive discussion on the challenges and the promise of the instrument, in particular how to link evidence to using this tool to accelerate government adoption to evidence-based programs. In particular, there was a wonderful conversation around the potential challenge of introducing private capital and whether that could lead to unintended consequences, and can this remain a force for good? And in fact, one person asked, the ultimate promise of Pay for Success is to have a thriving financial market to invest in these things so that even non-double bottom line investors would participate, and whether a singularly focused private investor would introduce unintended consequences. So we talked a lot about the federal government role to keep everyone honest, and we talked about, in particular, the $300 million incentive fund, which is proposed out of Treasury, and what role that fund could play in several realms. One is to correct for some wrong pocket problems. In particular, a lot of the Medicaid-driven social impact bond applications gets quite challenging at the state level, especially in states where the FMAP is 70 cents on the dollar getting accrued to the government, and whether the incentive fund could help top up some of those inequities in the savings formula at the state level. Another place where the incentive fund could be really helpful is mitigating risk for investors to come in. So playing a credit enhancement role, much like what the SBA has done for the guarantee funds for small businesses, et cetera. Finally, there was a lot of interest in getting the federal government play a larger role in training and capacity building at the state and local government level, as well as having some standards around data collection practices, because data ultimately is the foundation for any Pay for Success vehicle. How to collect data, digitize it, and so that it's consistent across jurisdictions, as well as perhaps setting up a clearinghouse for not just information, but deeper insight and analysis so that local, state, and jurisdictions could learn more quickly.
That is great. We've now just experienced the debrief, and we're going to quickly move on to the panel. But do let me say again, we're serious about writing down thoughts you have about this. Either things you've heard or things that haven't been talked about that you came here thinking like, and you're going to leave going, I can't believe we didn't talk about X. Share what X is in this Endor right Shivam so that we can really benefit from that as we go forward. Because just the final thought is that if you compare, if you could imagine this conversation 5 years ago, I mean, it's literally impossible to imagine this group of people coming together around this issue 5 years ago. But if you could, and then kind of measure the distance that's been traveled, if you just think of the specific ideas that came out of those three groups, it really is extraordinary the kinds of things that are at the frontier now that people here are working on. So incredibly exciting, a lot of work to do, and hopefully these ideas and others will be the basis for kind of continued collaboration around the coalition. So let me turn it over now to Daniel for the next piece of the agenda.